So, let's talk about something you've probably been hearing a ton about lately: the end of globalization. But what if that whole narrative is wrong? Today, we're going to dig into what's really happening with the global economy in an explainer we're calling the Great Rewire. I mean, turn on the news, open any website, and it feels like every other headline is screaming the same thing. Between all the trade wars and the pandemic chaos, the message seems crystal clear. The golden age of a super-connected world is over. Globalization, they say, is dead. And yeah, it's a compelling story for sure. It's simple. But what if it's just not true? What if the hard data tells a completely different and frankly, way more interesting story? All right, so that brings us to our first big idea: the myth of deglobalization. Let's just ignore the headlines for a minute and look at what the numbers are actually telling us. Okay, so let's start with the big picture. After a little dip in 2023, you'd expect things to keep falling, right? Nope. Global trade didn't just bounce back, it's growing. We're looking at a projected 2.6% increase in 2024, and then it's expected to accelerate to 3.3% in 2025. That is not a collapse, my friends. That's a comeback. And we are not talking about small numbers here. We're talking about global trade hitting a mind-boggling $35 trillion for the first time in history in 2025, a record high. So if globalization is dead, it's having a pretty lively funeral. This doesn't look like an ending at all. It looks like a brand new chapter. And that brings us to the core concept of this whole thing: reglobalization. See, it's not about deglobalization, it's about a massive structural transformation. The world isn't trading less, it's just trading differently. The connections are literally being rewired. So if the world's trade map is being redrawn, who's holding the pen? Who are the big winners in this new game? Well, let's talk about two of the biggest so far: Mexico and Vietnam. They're what some folks are calling the new connector economies. Okay, get this. In 2024, for the first time in 2 decades, Mexico blew past China to become the #1 exporter of goods to the United States. We're talking about a $500 billion trade relationship here. And key sectors like automotive, aerospace, and electronics are just exploding. This is nearshoring happening in real time. And hey, it's not just about who's closest. Just look at Vietnam. It's become the go-to China plus one destination for companies looking to diversify their supply chains away from China. Their trade surplus with the U.S. hit a record $178 billion. And the biggest example? Apple. By 2025, they're planning to make 65% of their AirPods and 20% of all iPads and Apple Watches in Vietnam. I mean, that is a massive seismic shift. So it seems pretty straightforward, right? The US is just buying less stuff from China and more from places like Mexico and Vietnam. Case closed. Well, not so fast, because this is where the story gets really interesting. Let's talk about China's unseen backdoor and the myth of decoupling. Here's the twist. While the US might be buying less finished goods directly from China, its new favorite trading partners are buying more parts from China. Vietnam's share of imports from China jumped from about 27% to almost 33%. Mexico is seeing a similar uptick. So while the final box might say "Made in Mexico," a whole lot of the components inside are still coming from China. And this quote just sums it up perfectly. The US hasn't actually decoupled from Chinese manufacturing at all. It's just made the supply chain longer, more complex. The chain has been rerouted, not broken. Okay, So what in the world is driving this massive, complicated shift? It all comes down to a fundamental change in corporate strategy. This brings us to the new rules of trade, a big move away from just worrying about cost and toward focusing on resilience. Think about how things were made for decades. It was all about just in time. Get the parts to the factory at the last possible second to keep costs as low as humanly possible. But then the pandemic hit, and we all saw just how fragile that system was. So the new playbook is just in case. It's about building a safety net, diversifying your suppliers, and having backup plans, even if it costs a little more up front. But wait, if this new just-in-case world is more expensive, how is that sustainable? Well, the short answer is technology. A whopping 89% of manufacturers are planning to integrate AI into their operations. You see, AI is the game changer that helps offset those higher costs, making this whole resilience thing actually work in the long run. And look, this isn't some far-off sci-fi stuff. That's happening right now. Computer vision is spotting tiny defects on the assembly line in real time. Predictive maintenance uses data to fix machines before they break down. And physical AI, we're talking smart robots, makes it possible to automate factories even in countries with higher wages. This is the tech that's making reshoring and nearshoring economically viable. Okay, so let's bring all of this home. Let's talk about how this massive rewiring actually affects you. Because this new, more resilient world, well, it has a cost. So what exactly is the price of resilience? Here's the bottom line. A global economy that's more complex, more redundant, and more resilient is also more expensive. Building all those safety nets and moving production closer to home means companies aren't just chasing the absolute lowest price anymore. And that pretty inevitably means higher costs for everyone. And that cost gets passed right on to us. This number is just so direct. About 40% of the cost of tariffs gets passed directly to U.S. households. This isn't some abstract economic theory. It's something you literally feel when you're at the checkout. And to put it in even more concrete terms, by late 2025, the prices for everyday stuff, appliances, clothes, electronics, were already running about 2% higher than they would have been otherwise. That's a direct result of building this safer, just-in-case global economy. Which leaves us with the big defining question of this new era. We are actively building a global system that's less fragile, but it's also more expensive. So we all have to ask ourselves, in the end, is that resilience worth the price?